Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Grow the Info. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Sorry it took a second to get going. Usually I like to wait a few minutes for the notifications to get sent out to the subscribers, and also I usually am just trying to get stuff like all situated and everything real quick before I go live. So thank you for being patient with me as usual. How are you guys today? I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining. Let's see who we have. We have Show Me Sasquatch and Bo in here this morning. Good morning, guys. I hope you're doing well. All right, so I have been trying to find where the ICE director is going to be making his speech thing, and I can't seem to find it. Fox News is, of course, streaming it. Of course, they know where to get the information. But the ICE director is supposed to be making a press briefing here soon. Let's see if we refresh their page, if they're live on here yet. If not, we'll just go through all the other stuff that I want to cover. Yep, it's not on here yet. Shame on them. Do you guys like how they're, look at their YouTube channel name, www.icegov. It's great job, guys, making it super easy to find, right? All right, so this morning we are going to be going through a few things about immigration. So if that is up your alley, then make sure that you keep watching. All of the links to everything I'm going to go through are going to be available on our website, growtheinfo.com, so make sure you check that out. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at growtheinfo is our handle. And make sure that you're subscribed and turn on bell notifications so that you get notified when we go live and when we schedule live things in advance. We are going to be streaming the impeachment trials today. It's going to start at about 1 p.m. Eastern Time and 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So let's go ahead and get through this before that gets started. In case you guys are unaware, there is a new caravan that has set forth from the Guatemala, Honduras area. I think it's from both places. I think there's a few countries that are taking part in this caravan, but just as the one before, they're trying to go through all of the countries, and they're just kind of going, you know, they're not stopping for law enforcement. Mexico has been trying to crack down more on immigration, on irregular immigration, through its points of entry. So the migrants, when they get to these points of entry, they stop and then they're like, hey, we want to get through. And the Mexican government is like, no, because, you know, the United States is threatening us with, you know, this tariff and, you know, that thing, and we have an agreement. So Mexico is supposed to be cracking down more on it, and they're trying to. But, of course, the migrants, you know, a lot of us don't necessarily listen to law enforcement. So they'll wait, and then when the government does not let them through, they're just kind of going around the points of entry. So there have been some kind of violent escalations that have happened during that. And Mexico is actually taking a stance on busing and flying people back to their countries of origin because they're, you know, not wanting to step on Trump's toes anymore, I guess, than what has already occurred. And I'm curious to know if you guys are for or against the border wall. So let me know, you know, in the comments if you're watching this on replay or in the chat room. I've heard a lot of, you know, differing angles on it and opinions on it. So it's a very interesting conversation to have. And of course, as we see more of the viruses and disease spreading throughout different countries and stuff, I think this is something that people are even more cautious about, are large groups of people traveling. So let's get into the things that I want to show you this morning. Oh, and first of all, I wanted to show you guys this. First of all, how would you like to wake up with some delicious GMO cereal? ARS has announced that there is a new cereal that is made with their fancy GMO wheat. A new breakfast cereal made its commercial debut January 2019, and one of its main ingredients is a type of wheat developed by ARS, breeders and collaborators. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Of course, there's a lot of foods and cereals. Most things that we consume nowadays have some kind of, GMO background with them. But if you are curious on information like this, then make sure that you check out our video on how to get GMO information on projects and stuff that's going on right from the source. We have that video in our government guides playlist section, so make sure you check that out. This was sent to me in an email from the USDA, so there's also a video that we have on how to sign up for emails from the USDA. So if you would like to have that, then check out that video as well. I just thought that was kind of interesting. I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so one of the recent things that has been happening with the whole immigration situation is that the ICE department is trying to get information on detainees and individuals that are in the New York sanctuary cities. And apparently New York is not being cooperative. So this is the written statement. I have the video pulled up that we're about to watch on it, just so you guys don't have to listen to me read through it. But I, of course, am going to link the written transcript on our website. So if you would rather read it instead of listening to it, then that is where you can find that. And I'm going to quickly play the video, or at least part of the video that is that the transcript is from. And then we will go on to what was released after this press release, or press briefing, I guess. Let me make sure I have my microphone turned off so you guys don't hear an echo.
Questions after this event if you'd like to speak with them as well. As much as I like New York City, I got to tell you, I hate that I'm here right now. As a 25-year law enforcement professional, it is unbelievable that I have to come here and plead with the city of New York to cooperate with us to help keep this city safe. And unfortunately, it's not a new battle. Myself and others within ICE and DHS, both in this administration and the last, have been trying for the better part of a decade to get the city to cooperate with ICE in furtherance of our shared public safety mission. Time and time again, our efforts and our warnings of the disastrous consequences of non-cooperation and even outright interference have gone unheeded, resulting in tragedies such as this one, and countless victims whose lives were forever scarred at the hands of illegal criminal aliens. And as long as politicians continue to put their own self-interests over those they have sworn to protect, and frankly, those who actually put them in office, this tragic situation will be repeated again and again. Make no mistake, it is this city's sanctuary policies that are the sole reason this criminal was allowed to roam the streets freely and end an innocent woman's life. So here I am again, pleading with the people of New York City and all other sanctuary cities in this country. Let ICE help you. Let us help you keep your community safe. We can actually prevent crimes such as these brutal sexual offenses and murders like we saw here this past week. These policies, plain and simple, both here and elsewhere in the country, make all of us less safe, which is the opposite of what the primary goal of every law enforcement officer, every law enforcement agency, and every elected official should be. Strong local partnerships and reliable cooperation are vital to successful law enforcement. Ask these cops up here. And as a career law enforcement professional, it's beyond frustrating to know that victims in communities across this country and in this city continue to suffer at the hands of criminals because those politicians choose to put politics over public safety. I'm going to open up to some questions, but before I do, I'm going to lay out some facts surrounding this issue and dispel a lot of the misinformation continually promoted by many in the media and many politicians. First and foremost, I'm going to explain to you what an ICE detainer really is. ICE issues detainers to advise local law enforcement partners that we have established probable cause to believe an individual who has already been arrested by that law enforcement agency for a criminal offense that is sitting in their jail is an alien who is subject to removal from this country under the United States federal law. ICE issues detainers and makes arrests based on probable cause, the exact same standard that NYPD and every other law enforcement agency in this country must adhere to when they make arrests for the crimes they're sworn to enforce. When we issue a detainer, we are simply asking to be notified prior to that alien's release and for our law enforcement partners to hold that individual for a brief period of time so that ICE may assume custody and prevent the release of that criminal back to the community. In many cases, especially in large metropolitan areas like New York, where our officers are concentrated, if the law enforcement agency gives us enough notice before the individual is released, we'll be there before they even roll over onto that detainer. And for those who obfuscate this issue by saying they don't want their officers asking immigration status and enforcing federal immigration law, like I saw the mayor's office say yesterday, let me put that false narrative to bed right here and now. We aren't asking you to. When we lodge a detainer, we have already made that probable cause determination. We are the ones making the enforcement action. All you need to do is call us before you release them. A phone call. One simple phone call. And Maria Fuertes could be alive today. There's also going to be those who try to deflect criticism for these policies by stating that they would honor the ICE detainer if accompanied by a judicial warrant. The individuals who make this claim are either willfully ignorant of the law or are patently disingenuous. ICE does not need a judicial warrant to issue a detainer or to make an arrest. To be perfectly clear, not only do we not need one, we can't even get one. There is no federal judge, state judge, local judge, magistrate, anywhere in this country that has a lawful authority to issue a judicial warrant for a civil immigration violation. It's just not doable. The system set up by Congress gives that authority solely to supervisory immigration officers, and that is the framework under which we operate. What many of these politicians also decline to mention is that their officers make warrantless arrests based on probable cause every single day. When they respond to a domestic disturbance or they respond to somebody that's selling drugs on the street corner, they're not going down to the courthouse and getting a warrant for that individual and coming back. Because guess what? He's not going to be there. Law enforcement make warrantless probable cause arrests every single day, as do we. Let's also be clear about whom we are lodging detainers against. As I mentioned previously, these individuals are already sitting in another law enforcement agency's custody because they were arrested for a criminal violation. These are often serious, violent offenses. Yet this city's policies actively thwart ICE from exercising its statutory authority for the protection of you and your neighbors. Unfortunately, this incongruent application of laws often results in senseless, tragic victimization, such as we saw this week. These are preventable crimes, people, and more importantly, preventable victims. Most times, we don't even know the criminal alien's been released because these sanctuary jurisdictions won't even tell us. You know how we find out one of the criminal aliens we lodged a detainer against was released? Usually it's when they get arrested again and their fingerprints bounce off the FBI's database and come to us. We've seen recidivism rates as high as 50% in some of the areas in which we operate. Last year, ICE lodged 7,526 detainers against our New York ERO field office. I know the PD has put out stats that are about half of that, probably because the other half of the detainers they lodged, they didn't even pay attention to. They're probably just put in the shredder. The criminals against whom these detainers were lodged accounted for 17,873 criminal convictions and another 6,500 criminal charges. The crimes these individuals have been convicted or charged with included 200 homicides, over 500 robberies, over 1,000 sexual offenses, over 1,000 weapons offenses, over 3,500 assaults, and over 1,500 DUIs. I'll say it again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. There should be nothing political about removing dangerous recidivist criminals from our streets. It's incredibly unfortunate that those who value their own political self-interest over the safety of their and security of their constituents. It's utterly senseless. For those of you who do not know very much about sanctuary city policies, I encourage you to educate yourself fully about this issue. The facts speak for themselves, as unfortunately this country is rife with tragic examples of senseless, preventable deaths, deaths that even include cops. Those who politicize this issue want you to believe that you have to choose between being an immigrant-friendly city and being one that cooperates with ICE. Again, that is simply false. The only immigrants protected by such policies are those committing violent and dangerous offenses, often in the same communities these politicians are purporting to protect. This is a common sense public safety issue, period. For those who think sanctuary policies will keep ICE out of their communities, nothing could be further from the truth. ICE is mandated by Congress to enforce immigration laws of this country, and we will continue to do so regardless of the opposition from those who hold no allegiance to the law. On the contrary, sanctuary city policies leave ICE with no reasonable alternative but to increase enforcement in neighborhoods, workplaces, and the general public. It's our duty to all of you to enforce the laws passed by Congress, and we are not going to stop fighting to keep your communities safe, regardless of whatever obstacles are placed in our path. One other common myth is that ICE performs random enforcement actions, random sweeps, or raids, the media likes to call them. Nothing could be further from the truth. 70% of the people that ICE arrests for immigration violations come to us directly from another law enforcement agency, as thankfully the vast majority of law enforcement agencies in this country cooperate with us. Nearly 9 out of 10 people that we arrest are convicted criminals, have a pending criminal charge, are an immigration fugitive, meaning they've already had their day in immigration court and been ordered removed by an immigration judge and have failed to comply with that lawfully issued judge's order, or are illegal reentrants, meaning they've been deported previously, have come back illegally again, which is a federal felony and one we prosecute 7,000 times a year. Another myth that I'll address, which shouldn't even be a myth after you've heard what I said already, is that ICE only arrests minor offenders. That's completely false. Nothing could be further from the truth. In FY19, we arrested 123,000 people convicted of or charged with criminal offenses.
All right, you guys, so I found a live stream that I can show you that is not from Fox of the current press briefing thing. They just have it unlisted, of course, because that is our government. So we are going to go to ice.gov/live. And here is where they have it, and it's unlisted, so that's why you can't find it on YouTube. There we go. Let's watch this one.
Are small, and it's a risk that they're willing to take. If we shut those avenues down and stop releasing, as we've seen what we've done recently with some of the things at the border with NPP and ACA and the IFR, where we've been able to stop those releases from occurring here in the United States, we've seen the numbers drop drastically. Why? Because they're not getting released into this country, and that's what they're looking for. Noble Garden was also worked in conjunction with the family fraud surge, which we talked about. To give context on that, we identified over 702 fraudulent families, almost 1,500 fraudulent documents and claims, almost 1,100 prosecutions. And we've seen the numbers actually drop as we've gone through. I mentioned all the various programs that we're utilizing, and I'm sure there'll be questions on those. But I don't think you can discount the deterrent effect of what we've done at the border to reducing the flow. When these criminal organizations can no longer create these fake family units and have them present themselves or come across the border and be released, that kills their market. They don't have these individuals to utilize. When they can't rent children, because what we're doing with Noble Garden or what we're doing with DNA testing, verifying identities when there's questions, that slows down the traffic. And I'll highlight one case for you, which shows the ruthlessness of some of these people. We had a case down in RGV a few months back where a woman presented herself or was arrested, I can't remember which, with a 2-month-old. The officers and the agents that were investigating that case, something wasn't right. They went and put them in for DNA testing, and they did 3 or 4 tests, and the DNA test for the child kept coming back inconclusive. In fact, kept coming back with 2 different strains of DNA, which isn't humanly possible. You know what it was doing? The mother was spitting into the child's mouth to put her DNA into that child so they could be released as a family unit. So that's what's going on down at the border. That's the humanitarian crisis we're talking about and that we're trying to deal with. So luckily she's in jail, the child was rescued, but that shows the heartlessness of some of these individuals and what they're willing to do to come to this country illegally. There's been a little news lately too with regard to sanctuary cities and subpoenas. You might have heard a little bit about that. What we've done with the subpoenas is at this point we're relegated to utilizing tools that we haven't used before because we haven't had to. You know, it used to be not that long ago we would get cooperation from every law enforcement, just about every single law enforcement agency in this country, not only with regard to honoring our detainers, but letting us into the jail so that we can interview people and make determinations with regard to the people that they've arrested for a criminal violation, and we can make a determination whether or not that individual is here lawfully, and if they are they subject to removal, and if they're here illegally, what charges we would lodge against them. And of course, obviously, if they honor the detainer, they turn them over to us in the safe confines of that jail, prevent that person from being released to the street where they could commit more crimes, which we've seen time and time again, tragically. Or at the very least, you know, give us notification, let us know that this person is going to be released. But they won't even do that. They won't even pick up the phone. They won't send us an email and say, hey, this guy's going to be bonding out in a couple hours. If you want him, come get him. Most jurisdictions in the country still work with us, but there are those, especially very prominent large ones, where there's large numbers of criminal aliens, don't cooperate with us. And it's a huge public safety risk. We've seen the tragic results that just happened last week in New York, where a 92-year-old woman was killed as a result of New York failing to honor a detainer or give us a call, let us know this guy's being released. So what we're doing is utilizing these subpoenas to try to get information. If we can't get into the jails, if they won't cooperate with us, the very least we need is some information that we could utilize to conduct an investigation to go try to find this person. But a lot of places aren't even giving us the information. They won't give us the residence, they won't give us phone numbers or the phone the individual had when he was arrested. They won't tell us where he works. They won't give us what type of car he drives, all this these sorts of things that are essential to conducting an investigation for us to find these individuals. And our goal is to find them before they commit further crimes, right? We're actually able to prevent crimes if we can get these people off the street. To give you an idea of context, and there's a lot around, well, these are, you know, minor criminals, small time, first time offenders. We arrested about 123,000 criminal aliens and those charged with crimes last year. That accounted for about 500,000 criminal charges. That's an average of 4 charges per individual. So these are not low-level offenders, first-time offenders. These are individuals who are in and out of the criminal justice system. Just look at New York. We lodged 7,500 detainers last year. That accounted for over 20,000 different convictions and crimes. You want to talk about fighting crime and keeping your streets safe? How much time could NYPD have dedicated to doing other functions instead of continually arresting people that are here illegally, have no lawful right to be here, and are committing further crimes? We could actually take those people off the street. We've seen recidivism rates in some places as high as 50%. Those are preventable crimes. ICE can actually help these communities. Most law enforcement professionals, especially police departments, they'll tell you they cannot prevent crime. They're responding to crimes most of the time. We can actually prevent further crime because we know these individuals, when released, often go back out and commit further crimes. We can stop that. So going back to the subpoenas, we're expecting that these jurisdictions, we've done Denver and New York, we expect them to comply. If they don't comply, we'll be working with DOJ to go and go to district court and get an order to force them to comply with the requirements. It's under the law, 8 CFR 287.4 little d, look it up. They're required to share that information with us. So we're not doing this as a threat, we're doing this as a last resort to try to get the information so that we can do our job and to keep our streets safe. To try to give you an idea, just real quick on the types of individuals that we've been lodging detainers against, especially in these 2 jurisdictions, are the ones we serve subpoenas on. We actually have Riaz Khan, the individual who's now sitting in jail after stabbing his dad with a broken coffee mug in the chest. That wasn't enough for New York to turn him over to us on the detainer. We filed information on that case, obviously. We have a 26-year-old citizen of El Salvador who was arrested in September for assault, wanted in El Salvador for homicide. We lodged a detainer. He was released from custody in December. We never got a call. He wasn't turned over to us. Now he's at loose. We have a 38-year-old Mexican citizen was arrested by NYPD in January for attempted rape, unlawful imprisonment, and attempted assault. His criminal record included arrests for DWI and criminal mischief. Additionally, he'd been caught 5 times trying to come to this country illegally. Again, we lodged a detainer. We received no cooperation. Another 38-year-old citizen from Mexico, arrested by NYPD in October. We lodged a detainer after his arrest for drugs. It wasn't honored. In 2012, this individual spent 60 months in federal prison for importing meth. So these are the kind of people that get back out on the street as a result of jurisdictions not cooperating with us. A couple of the cases in Denver, individuals arrested for sexual assault, 8 other convictions, including drugs, DWI, and illegal reentry. Vehicular homicide. He'd been arrested less than a week before for DWI, and they didn't honor the detainer. 3 other DWI convictions for battery with a deadly weapon and theft, and been removed from the country several times. Last one was a man who was arrested for child abuse, assault, and strangulation assault. He too was released from Denver County Jail after ICE detainer had been lodged. He had 3 previous convictions for DUI and been deported 5 times. So this is the people that we're trying to get cooperation from. It shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be difficult for ICE to get cooperation from other law enforcement agencies to get these bad guys off the street. And what I think you saw in New York, when you heard the cops up there on the dais and in the media afterwards, they're willing to help with us. They want to help with us. It's either their leadership or their politically appointed people in their jurisdictions which are preventing them from doing so. It's good policing. It's common sense police work. It's common sense for public safety to get criminals off the streets. You know, we don't do politics. There's not one person in this agency, including myself, that needs a single vote, that needs a single dollar from a donor, or a single endorsement from any special interest group to do our jobs. We do our jobs because we're sworn federal law enforcement officers, and that's what we do. So we have no ulterior motive other than doing our jobs, keeping the communities that we swore to protect safe. So I'll leave it at that and open up to other questions that you may have. So thank you. This man right in the front.
Hi, thanks so much for doing this. Earlier today, the State Department issued new rules on birth tourism. This is something that ICE HSI has been involved with in the past. So are you coordinating with State Department, and are you providing any additional information or guidance to offices around the world and or airlines?
Yeah, so certainly this is a DOS regulation with regard to the requirements. They control the visa issuance process and what's required. I can tell you is we are working cases. We actually had the first federal prosecution for a birth tourism case last year, back in the fall, in Orange County, California, where the individual was involved in this, charging pregnant Chinese nationals up to $50,000 to come here as birth tourists so they could give birth here in the country. We seized I think close to $1 million worth of assets from this individual. They were sentenced to prison for the visa fraud that they were involved in. So we will certainly continue to vigorously prosecute and investigate those cases that fall underneath our purview. Hi, Maria.
Hi. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it. I wanted to ask you about the birth tourism. Just a couple of quick questions. That investigation started under the Obama administration, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it did. I don't have the complete details, but I can tell you this. You know, the investigations that we conduct now are the same ones that we conducted under the Obama administration, under the Bush administration. I was hired under the Clinton administration. The laws generally haven't changed with what we do. We enforce the law equitably, fairly, professionally, regardless of who's in the White House, regardless of who holds the legislative branches in this country.
And just a quick question about the birth tourism issue. Can you put that into context for us? How big of a problem is that? This is becoming a policy that's going to affect consular offices all over the world. You know, what do you think they should ask women who are trying to come to this country?
Again, Department of State handles the visa issuance process. They do the consular interviews overseas. I'm not in a position to sit here and tell DOS how they should do the work. Well, certainly, if we have information on groups or intel with regard to people that might be coming and trying to exploit those regulations, we certainly share that information and work closely. So if you want like an in-depth dive, we can get you someone from HSI.
Yeah, just how big of a problem is this?
I think it's a big problem. I mean, I don't have numbers in front of me, Maria, but I mean, clearly, any situation where you have a policy or a procedure that's being leveraged that allows criminal activity to flourish, with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars being utilized in that process. You know, it's just as I talked about Congress shutting down loopholes with regard to family detention so that we can stop that problem. If we can solve or at least address a large part of this problem by changing a regulatory process or rules that DOS employs, it only makes good sense to. Sir.
Hi, Ben Fox from AP. On the birth tourism, it's a pretty big loophole if this is just stopping it at the, sort of the visa process, right? Because it's a lengthy visa period. So sort of what else can ICE or CBP and what else is being contemplated to address it sort of going forward? I mean, what other measures can you take?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk about anything prospectively, what we might be doing. It's clear, it's out there publicly what is being done. Again, CBP and ICE work very closely with regard to sharing information, sharing intelligence. We have our Border Enforcement Security Task Forces in which we have CBP and ICE working side by side so that we share information. We have information on potential smugglers, organizations. It's continually shared so that if we need to have somebody go through a certain interview at a port of entry, that can be done. If we need to conduct investigative casework after the fact, that can be done as well. So, sir.
Hi, my name is Neil Monroe. I'm with Breitbart News. If I may shift the subject slightly, you have new numbers coming out on the OPT program. So I was wondering, looking through the old numbers, and I see colossal levels of hiring by major companies of OPTs. I mean, thousands of them a year, 4,500 being one company. This is wildly out of proportion to the OPT's presence in the American in the new college graduate market. I mean, so it looks like some companies are just hiring OPTs wildly in excess of their proportion in the population. Are you doing any investigations to see if this is national discrimination against Americans?
So we have a report that's going to be forthcoming, so I don't want to get ahead of our skis on that, and I think we'll probably do some media with that and get some real in-depth discussion as to what those numbers are and what they mean. But with regard to investigations we do under the CVIS program, which we oversee, and with these things, we have multiple investigations into employers that are either fraudulent employers, meaning they don't really have a company, and they're just utilizing that as a document mill, basically, for lack of a better term, for people that could stay here in the country illegally and work. It's similar, frankly, to what we saw in Michigan with that University of Farmington with the fake college, where people that were here illegally had no intent to actually study but just wanted to stay and work illegally, took advantage of, or tried to take advantage of that process, right? So same idea here. Any place time where we see fraud, where someone's trying to take advantage of a legitimate program illegitimately, whether it's on the part of an employer or a fake employer, or whether it's on part of the alien or the fake student, and I'll put that in quotes, trying to take advantage of these programs, we're going to vigorously pursue. We have a huge footprint within Homeland Security Investigations that focuses on these types of investigations, and we do hundreds of investigations a year and make thousands of arrests for these types of violations.
Okay, I see forgive me, but I see very few arrests and for this white collar smuggling, if you like. You guys are going, and it appears highly successful in reducing, forgive me, the blue collar migration across the border. But I see very little movement in this. For the Fine Dream case was, as far as I can see, an FBI thing, and it happened 3 weeks after I wrote about it. And there's a bunch of these fake, extravagantly, obviously fake companies on the list. You just read the name, see if you can find the company. It's not there, and they've been hiring thousands of these foreign college graduates. So are you putting more effort into dealing with this white-collar immigration crime compared to a couple of years ago?
We certainly are. We put out a new regulation, obviously, under CVIS. One of the big issues with anything is we have over 400 federal laws that we prosecute is resources, right? If this is something that we certainly take seriously, but Congress also has the ability to prioritize what gets done by providing us resources to do and address certain criminal activity. They've done it in the drug space. They've done it in other realms. It could be done here. But these investigations, again, while you may be able, it looks like somebody's a fraudulent company on its face, right? In order to actually get to the point where we don't want to just shut these things down or have somebody flee. Like a lot of these guys are foreign nationals, they're going to flee back to their home countries. We actually want to get an investigation to the point where we can prosecute that case, present it to the U.S. Attorney's Office, prosecute that case, seize the assets from the individual that they gained as a result of this this fraudulent scheme, as well as getting the individuals that benefited from it. So it doesn't do us any good to publicize these 50 companies that we're prosecuting so they can shut down, move back to China, and live off their profits, or come back into the country a year or two from now and start a new one, right? We actually want to stop the problem, and that's putting people in jail and shutting down that pipeline.
And
So,
yeah.
Ted.
Thank you. Ted Hessen with Reuters, and thank you for holding the briefing. I would like to ask you about the DACA program. There was a report in CNN last month about ICE reopening cases against DACA enrollees, and specifically people with either no criminal record or minor crimes. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that and what the plan is in the event that the Supreme Court allows President Trump's termination of the program.
Right. So, as you're well aware, DACA provides no lawful status to anybody, right? It is not a status. It's just a deferral of somebody's removal process or removal proceedings. What that was, if I remember correctly, was there were a bunch of cases that were previously administratively closed that were simply reopened and relodged if they get ordered removed, and DACA is done away with by the Supreme Court. We could actually effectuate those removal orders. But it also enables these individuals, if they have an asylum claim or want to lodge some sort of relief, a claim for relief from removal, withholding, or whatever the case may be, that's the avenue which they would avail themselves of. So it's just a matter of putting these cases never should have been administratively closed. They should have been able to go through the immigration.
Move on, because I don't know how much longer he's going to be taking questions and everything. And thank you guys for watching. If you're new here, if you're just joining us, then welcome to Grow the Info. Make sure that you're subscribed and turn on bell notifications so you can be notified when we go live. We're going to be streaming the impeachment hearings later on in about an hour and 20 minutes. So make sure that you're subscribed so you can catch that. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Grow the Info is our name. And you could check out our website, growtheinfo.com. All right, so let's move on here. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Let's get into this. Okay, so we just heard him talking about DACA and, you know, how they can still go after people when they want to. They don't need a warrant, as was stated in the other press conference that we watched, and that, like, they can't get a warrant that way. They're doing their job the way that they're supposed to be doing it, and these sanctuary cities, and New York in particular, is not cooperating in the way that they are apparently supposed to be cooperating. So I, not that long ago, saw a few very interesting emails pop into my inbox about some temporary protected status and things like that have to do with immigration. So I'm going to show you those things. And I'm also going to show you a few more things that have to do with the New York situation. Let me show you that. Nope, that's still my face. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this came out on the 18th, January 18th. ICE begins using long-standing legal authority to demand information regarding criminal aliens. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement served 4 immigration subpoenas Friday on the New York Department of Corrections requesting information on multiple illegal aliens who were criminally arrested in New York City, and yet under New York's non-cooperation policies, officials have refused to honor ICE detainers and even provide ICE with information about the release dates of criminal alien public safety threats. So as they mentioned, they don't even necessarily know when the illegal aliens and when these people are getting out. They just only know, when they finally get arrested and when the crime has already been committed. Issuance of these immigration subpoenas was necessary because the NYDOC has continued to ignore ICE's requests for information and cooperation. ICE uses statutorily authorized immigration subpoenas to obtain information as part of investigations regarding potential removable aliens. And then it goes on down here to talk about a couple stories regarding these kinds of situations. A 21-year-old unlawfully present Guyanese national who was arrested on January 10th by the NYPD and charged with murder, sexual abuse, contact by forcible compulsion, and sexual abuse of a 92-year-old woman. He was previously released from local law enforcement custody in November 2019, despite ICE having lodged a detainer against him due to New York's sanctuary policies. So these people are being arrested like they are in law enforcement's custody. And then the law enforcement is just like, oh, well, we're going to let them go. Usually because their systems are too crowded, right? If you've ever been to a local jail, then you probably have noticed that they just becoming more and more crowded. Maybe you've never visited anybody in jail, or maybe you don't know anybody that's ever been in jail. Maybe you've never been there. So they just keep becoming more and more crowded. So of course they release people oftentimes when other times they wouldn't, because their situations are just like massively overcrowded, and when you have too many people in confined spaces, a lot of violence can break out. So oftentimes they'll just release you. So these people go on to commit other crimes, and they're being released even though ICE has said, no, don't release them. This is how our government works, you guys. They expect us to listen to them, but they don't even listen to each other. A 26-year-old citizen of El Salvador who was arrested in September 2019 for assault and is wanted in El Salvador for homicide. He was moved to Rikers Island and ICE lodged a detainer against him. However, ICE is actively attempting to locate him in the community because he was released by NYDOC in December. A 38-year-old citizen of Mexico who was arrested in January 2019 by the NYPD for attempted rape, unlawful imprisonment, and attempted assault. He had 2 prior arrests by the NYPD for other criminal activity. ICE issued a detainer at the time of his last arrest, but he was released by NYDOC after posting bail. A 38-year-old citizen of Mexico arrested by NYPD in October 2019 on drug charges. ICE lodged a detainer against him, but recently confirmed he had been released and the ICE detainer was declined. Previously in 2012, he was sentenced to 60 months in federal prison for attempting to import methamphetamine. He has been previously removed to Mexico, and currently there is a federal warrant for his arrest for illegal reentry charge. So I have seen on quite a few mainstream media networks, they're really pushing hard the fact that CBP and ICE are separating families and kind of detaining parents and stuff for small charges, which I'm sure they are, and if they are, I would disagree with that. If it's a small charge, if it's nonviolent and things like that, if somebody has been charged with a dime bag, then, whatever. However, individuals that are being charged with these really bad crimes, and then they just get released again into our society, I am not so much for that. Definitely not. Oftentimes in our criminal justice system, there's nothing in place to help people reintegrate back into society. So I'm not sure why they think, just releasing them is going to be the best option. They probably don't think that. They probably just don't really care, honestly. Okay, and then we went through a little bit of that press conference. So this is another thing that I found recently. When was this? This was December 18th. So I remembered this popping up into my email, and I thought that this was just very interesting and has to do kind of along the same guidelines and why they're wanting to crack down on immigration. They don't just see people being smuggled across, and they don't just see people being smuggled through waterways and stuff. They also see massive amounts of drugs too. So that's why they're trying to really ramp up all the CBP action along our border. So this was in San Diego that they found this. The DEA and U.S. Coast Guard announced today, this was December 18th though, a significant offload of drugs, I'm sorry it's too small for me, seized in international waters in the eastern Pacific Oceans. Agents with the DEA and the crew of the USCG Cutler Burhoff offloaded 18,000 pounds of cocaine, worth an estimated $312 million at the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal in San Diego. So they just dumped it off there. That's ridiculous. And I'm not sure how to share this. I might just have to share a screen capture of this on the website, just so you guys know. Disrupting the maritime networks responsible for moving vast quantities of drugs on the high seas is one important way that DEA helps stop the flow of cocaine and other dangerous drugs into the United States. The staggering amount of illegal drugs offloaded today is a testament to our strong interagency partnerships in the U.S. and abroad, and the success that can be achieved when working together to stop this threat to our country. So that right there, they mentioned that they are working with other groups in other countries. And oh my goodness, why do they have to make the text so small? See if I can. Alright, now does it look okay in your guys' screen? Okay. Alright, I'm sorry, I got bad eyes. Alright, so this is a press conference between the senior State Department official on State Department successes in the Western Hemisphere region. So in this they discuss a lot about how the U.S. is working with just a whole bunch of other countries in South America and Central America. Some of the accomplished, the U.S., Mexico, and Canada signed the USMCA. This treaty achieved the administration's key goals of modernizing and rebalancing the North American trade agreement. Remember, I mentioned that Mexico is being incentivized to crack down on immigration because they don't want to step on Trump's toes. Well, this is one of the things that they're very concerned about is the USMCA and other kinds of trade agreements. I mean, with Trump being very steadfast in saying that he's going to crack down on this tariff and that sanction and everything, they're trying to, all work together. It will support high-paying jobs for Americans, it will grow the North American economy, and it will ensure our region remains the world's economic powerhouse. We also in the region saw a major success for democracy in Bolivia. The President Morales ignored the will of his people expressed in a referendum and had his Supreme Court declare the constitutional term limits unconstitutional. This is always interesting to me how people can do that. So he goes on to mention Maduro as well, because again, these are things that our government wants to have a hand in South America. And so they are definitely using things like the USMCA to their advantage. They want to really talk about all of these successes that have been happening with these countries that are willing to work with them, and then they want to keep sticking it to the countries that are not willing to work with them. That way they can put pressure on everybody, because if the countries that we are cool with, if they are working with countries we are not cool with, then our government says, hey, country we're cool with, we're not going to be cool with you anymore. And then they're like, oh no. And down here, I wanted to read this to you as well. The U.S. has been faced with an uncontrolled mass migration, as we all have seen. During 2019, we negotiated the June 7th Joint Declaration with Mexico, enlisting Mexican government support in reducing the number of irregular migrants arriving at the U.S. southern border. This has reduced arrivals by 62%. That's a lot, 62%. From 400 and 4,600 per day in May down to less than 1,500 per day in October. So really steep decline. The State Department also supported the creation and expansion of the Migrant Protection Protocols in Mexico and the Department of Homeland Security, and negotiated signing of asylum cooperation agreements with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, along with other arrangements to bolster border security, combat migrant smuggling, promote information sharing, and expand H-2 visa access to the United States. This all promises to thwart human smugglers and to channel migration back into safe, orderly, and legal avenues. Very, very interesting press statements, and it's long because it includes questions from the press and everything. So that will be linked on our website in some way, shape, or form. Alright, so this white paper thingy-majig is an agreement between the United States of America and Guatemala. This is what they were talking about. This was signed in Washington, July 26th, 2019. And I'm not going to go through this whole thing, of course, because it's 13 pages and you guys aren't going to sit for me reading through 13 pages. But I really want to highlight the first parts because it's talking about, agreements and stuff with Guatemala and how we're going to work with them. But the first thing it mentions is some stipulations regarding this agreement. And remember, they do things like this with a lot of countries. It's not just Guatemala. They do stuff like this with the USMCA as well. Okay, so considering that Guatemala regulates its relations with other countries in accordance with international principles, rules, and practices. I'm sorry I'm so tongue-tied. With the purpose of contributing to the maintenance of peace and freedom, the respect of defense of human rights, and the strengthening of democratic processes and international institutions that guarantee the mutual equitable benefit among the states. So they're pretty much saying there, we're going to keep an eye on you and how you interact with other countries like Venezuela. Whereas Guatemala currently incorporates a dynamic immigration law into its domestic legislation, which requires Guatemala to recognize the right of every person to emigrate or immigrate, thereby allowing any migrant to enter, remain, transit, leave, and return to its territory in accordance with its domestic laws. Likewise, in situations not provided for by the domestic legislation, the norm that most favors the migrants must be applied. As such, temporary shelter and care could be given to those who wish to enter Guatemala legally. For the above reasons, it is necessary to promote cooperation agreements with other states that uphold the same values outlined in Guatemala's migration policy, which is regulated by the National Migration Authority. Considering that Guatemala is a party to this convention and protocols in which the United States of America is a party, and reaffirming the obligation of the parties to provide protection to refugees who meet the requirements of those who are physically in their respective territories. So it's going on to say, so you need to work with us, but at the same time, Guatemala has this immigration policy and they need to stick with their immigration policy. I love the juxtaposition. Recognizing in particular the obligation of the parties to comply with the principle of non-refoulement as outlined in the 1951 Convention and the 1967 Protocol, as well as the Convention Against Torture and Other Treatment or Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Penalties, signed in New York, subject to the parties' respective reservations, understandings, and declarations, and reaffirming their respective obligations to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms consist with their international obligations. So it's saying we recognize all this and everything. Underscoring that the United States and Guatemala offer refugee protection systems that are consistent with their obligations under the 1951 Convention and other protocols. So then they're saying, okay, so see, we have similar policies. And remember, earlier it said that Guatemala needs to work with other countries and other places that have similar policies. So it's saying we have similar policies. Determined to maintain the status of refugee or equivalent temporary protection as an essential measure of the protection of refugees or asylees, and that at the same time wishing to prevent fraud in the refugee or asylum application process, an action that undermines its legitimate purpose, and determined to strengthen the integrity of the official process for requesting asylum or refugee status, as well as public support for said processes. And then it goes on to go through the agreements. So I just thought that that was amusing and wanted to share that with you guys. Of course, that will be linked on our website, growtheinfo.com, so you can read through the whole thing. But it's a very good example of how the United States is like, hey, we want to work with you on immigration. We totes do, man. And then they're like, oh, but you know, if you don't do things the way we want to do it, and if you don't do this and you don't do that, then we're not going to trade with you as much. We're not going to, you know, give you this kind of aid or do whatever. Hello, Jeanette. You see only buffering. Uh-oh. My internet says it's fine. And I can see the stream on the YouTube thing fine. So, I mean, no, it's not over, obviously, but, that's YouTube for you. That's also doing things ghetto fab for you, right? I'm sorry it buffers, you guys. That's why I try not to go over to the chat too much and try to like comment and everything, because every time I do that, it starts making my stream buffer. But I mean, that's how it is when you don't have like super fancy internet and stuff. Not a monetized channel. I can't invest a whole bunch of, you know, money into my channel. So unfortunately, that's how that is. I am very sorry about it though. It bothers me too a lot. Let me make sure you guys are seeing this the right way. Here. We'll do. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, never mind. We'll just leave it on that one. I'll just zoom out a little bit so that it's easier for you guys to see. Okay, so if you go to ice.gov, that's where you can get a lot of information on recent immigration stuff and other things that are happening with our border, things that they've been seizing. If you saw our video recently on the goo that was found in somebody's suitcase at an airport, that was from the cbp.gov website, who is of course associated with ICE. They work together. So there's a lot of good information that you can find on these sources. If you're interested in you know, what's going in and out of our country, I suggest you check out those sources. And if you haven't seen our video on the mysterious biological sciences that were found in the dude's suitcase, make sure you check that out, because it's weird. Alright, so this is the ice.gov website. I showed you that. Alright, and U.S. and Mexico continue interior reparation initiative, first flight of 2020. My eyes are giving up on me, you guys. I'm sorry. But here's a picture of the airplane full of migrants who are being, apparently they're being shipped back to wherever they came from. And again, as I said, Mexico has been trying to take a firmer stance on that. This is out of Tucson, Arizona. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement continued its Interior Reparation Initiative January 16th with the first flight of 2020. The IRI is a joint agreement between the governments of the United States and Mexico to ensure that those repatriated to Mexico continue to return closer to their homes in a safe, humane, and expeditious manner. The goal of the IRI is to return Mexican nationals to the interior of Mexico. ICE will continue these flights as needed. Having this framework will reduce recidivism and border violence by returning Mexico nationals to their cities of origin, where there is a higher likelihood that they will reintegrate themselves back into their communities rather than fall victim to human trafficking or other crimes in Mexican border towns. ICE works closely with U.S. Customs and Border Protection to ensure safe and expedited removal of individuals who have unlawfully crossed the southern border. So they are saying that they are shipping people back. And, okay, I already showed you guys that. But if you guys are subscribed to any of the kind of Central and South American YouTube channels, one in particular that I have found some good information regarding this on is Telesur. And they recently did a piece where they went and they spoke to some of these migrants in the new caravan that is leaving Guatemala and Honduras area. And the people, when they got to, as I said, the border crossings that Mexico is trying to close down and trying to, only let a few people through at a time, the Mexican government told them, like, okay, we'll make an offer of letting through about 20 people at a time, and you have to prioritize pregnant women and children. And the migrants were like, no, we just all want to go through. So I'm not sure, I don't know exactly what Mexico plans to do about that. I know, as I said, there have been some violent kind of things that have happened because of that. But these migrants are just going around, just like in America with our border, how they'll, get to the border and they'll be like, hey, we want to get in. And the CBP's like, no. And so then they just go around. So I'm not exactly sure what can be done about this. And I find it interesting that they think the solution is shipping people back when these people have already made the very long journey of getting here in the first place, and they already know that they're going to be charged and possibly sent back if they're doing things illegally, but they're still choosing to go about it that way. And you have to ask yourself why. If you're unaware of some of the things that have been going on regarding farming and stuff in Central and South America, now would be a good time to look into it. There have been crazy crop shortages and stuff that have gone on. Of course, there's a lot of gang violence and a lot of crime that happen in these Central and South American countries. And part of the problem with the crime is that the farmers and the local rural people that maybe were able to get money through, good means and legit means, they no longer can. They can't grow their crops, they can't, find this work or that work, and so they are forced oftentimes to have to try to find some work with the gangs. So it's a very difficult situation. And then, of course, if you don't want to be part of the gangs and you don't want to interact with them and everything, then they'll threaten to do things to you or your family. And if you don't want that to happen, then you end up having to pay a smuggler to try to smuggle you into the U.S., where you're just going to get caught and then shipped back. So it's a very interesting situation that we have happening right now. There was one other thing I wanted to show you guys, which I don't have pulled up in front of me. It will take me 1 second. That's fun. Alright, that's not what I want to show you guys though. What I do want to show you, okay, let's look at this one. Can I pull this up for you guys? Oh, hold on. Sorry guys, my neighbor stopped by, and I'll probably have to put this on pause again in a second too. All right. Well, let me leave this door open so I can hear if he knocks on the front door again. Okay. Switch to the view so you guys can see it. Alright, so temporary protected status designated country El Salvador. So when you go to the, what is this, uscis.gov website, you can get information on the TPS status from different countries. TPS is temporary protected service. Okay, let's see. I'm having to look carefully at the screen. I'm sorry. All right. The U.S. District Court of the Northern District of California enjoined DHS from implementing and enforcing the decisions to terminate temporary protected service for Sudan, Nicaragua, Haiti, and El Salvador, pending a further resolution of the case. Okay, there it was right at the top. I don't know why I didn't see that. Okay, so they have these court cases linked. I have been linking these court cases on our website, growtheinfo.com. And these court cases have to do with TPS, protected status individuals. Now, what some of these court cases are about is that people are being told that they need to be expedited from the country after they have gone through legal means already of trying to get like the court dates and everything, and they will get the form for the court dates and there's no court date. I'm sure you guys have probably heard about stuff like that, you know, happening even with American citizens. So they're like, okay, well, you know, you have to let us know when the court date is going to be. So now people are waiting for court cases because of this. They're suing the government and will bar and stuff, and they're now waiting in the country while these cases conclude. And because of that, that's actually having an effect on the TPS status of other people and the whole immigration enforcement thing. So as you saw, that you could click on that link to get to the whole court case thing, but as I said, I have been linking these court cases on our website every time that they do an update on this. And there are several cases that that is happening in, and there are several countries that this is happening in. And that's not all I wanted to show you. I know you can hear my kids in the background. Oh well. They're at least good kids. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Here's the one from Syria. Here we go. Here's the one from Syria. Okie dokie. All right, so this is for Syria. Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Kevin McAleenan announced his decision to extend the temporary protected status designation for Syria for 18 months through March 31st. Do not pay for or submit any form until USCIS updates official re-registration information on this webpage. You know what's funny though is that they've had that notice up for quite a while and they're not updating anything. Very interesting, huh? Let's see what else is going on regarding the TPS thing, shall we? I hope you guys are all doing well. All right, is this, can I see this on a different thing? Okay, yes, I can pull it up on here. I would much rather show you guys actual PDFs and other, oh my gosh, I can't read that. Wow, that's tiny. I can't read that. I'll just show you guys the email and then I'll link the PDF on the web page. But I would rather show you guys like an actual PDF or an actual link that you guys can get other than just the emails that they send to me. But let's just show you this because it's easier for me to read. They do have a PDF linked at the bottom though. Okay, DHS is automatically extending the validity of employment authorization documents, or EADs, listed in the table below issued under the TPS designation for El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, and Sudan through January 4th, 2021. EADs with the following expiration dates and a category code of A12 or C19 are now valid through January 4th, 2021. Automatically, these employment authorization documents are automatically extended until January 4th, 2021. So next year, and you can see there's ones from 2017, 2018, 2019, and of course ones that are going to be expiring in 2020. So they are automatically just going ahead and letting the TPS designation and these documents, they're just saying, okay, yeah, just go ahead and, you know, recertify it all. And down here at the bottom, you can read the register notice. This is the actual PDF where it gives a lot more information. What is my dog doing? Why does she sound like she has a hairball? It has a lot of details about all of it. And let's see, where did that email go? Okay. Let's also look and see if they have anything else. Oh no, this is just still for Syria. So the designation, the TPS designation for Syria is extending through March 31st, 2021. So while the CBP is trying to crack down on immigration, and while ICE is trying to get people that they feel have committed crimes and that could be, harmful in our country, and trying to get them out and expedited back to where they can be, properly charged, at the same time, other branches of our government are extending documents and, like, for example, TPS, to allow these people to be here for even longer. And, I mean, that's, the people with the TPS are then, legally allowed to be here for longer than they were in the first place. So, it's interesting how our different branches of government don't necessarily seem to work together on a lot of these things. I hope it's not buffering still. I can't see any more comments in the chat, so I hope it's not buffering anymore. I hope it fixed itself. I at least hope that the replay is okay. Thank you guys so much for joining me and listening to all of this stuff about immigration. That big caravan that's coming, I think it's going to hit here pretty soon, and I don't think that our Homeland Security is prepared for it. They have had a few hearings recently on the preparedness of DHS to deal with things like children and, people that are needing medical attention, and from my perspective, DHS is not, they're not equipped to deal with that. I mean, that's, as they've said many times before in their own defense, they're not really trained to do that. This is something like a massive undertaking that they're having to take on. So, I don't know. Very interesting. I definitely don't think that the border wall is going to be finished by the time that all of these people get up to our border. And there have already been issues in the detention facilities and whatever you want to call them. The cages, I don't know, whatever you guys want to call them, that we have at the border. There have already been issues of fights breaking out and people dying and stuff like that. So I don't think that these people that are in the caravan are being informed about that stuff. I mean, obviously they're probably not. It's probably not like they're walking along with their freaking smartphone connecting to the Wi-Fi, and watching YouTube channels and keeping up with everything that's going on. So I don't know how this situation can be changed. It's very interesting. I think that the government in those countries need to do more to try to keep people there in the first place. Just like how in our own country and in our own states, if there's mass migration out of an area, then we blame, the policies of the area. And, we look at what's happening there. We don't just blame the people. So even, so I think that the governments that are there need to try to do some more to rectify the situation. The people do not have faith in anything changing at all. Also, our government has released statements about how Central and South American countries are now working with us to fight terrorist groups like Hezbollah. I didn't know that Hezbollah was there in Central and South America, but apparently they are. So, you got the gangs, and now you got that to deal with too. It's a whole mess of a situation, and I really feel for the people, though, that are feeling the need to just leave their homes and travel across countries, not knowing what's going to happen, knowing that they might die along the way, and that they don't have any faith, they don't have any hope. Their country is not doing anything, so they're like, well, we can't change things here, so let's just leave. My heart really goes out to those people. So thank you guys for joining. We are going to be streaming the impeachment trials, as I said, in, let's see, about 40 minutes. They are going to start. I'm not going to go through any of the white papers or any of the articles of impeachment or anything. Again, I've gone through that in previous streams, and also we have heard enough about it, I think. But as always, the links to those will be in the description box of the impeachment stream. I don't have all the links to everything I just covered in the description box for this one because there was a lot, so I will make a separate post on our webpage, growtheinfo.com, regarding all of this stuff so that you guys can have the information for yourself. And thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me. I keep saying this, but every time you guys spend even a minute here, it really does help to boost the algorithms to, eventually try to promote us. We're a small, unmonetized channel. We don't have even 1,000 subscribers yet, so it's not going to be promoted. So every time that you guys share the streams on like your social media, or you try to tell other people, hey, watch Grow the Info, it really does help. It really does. And I appreciate it so much. You guys are wonderful, and I love you all, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. And let's put on a couple tunes, and I will see you guys later for the impeachment hearings. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, that's not the right screen. Okay, thanks for watching.